Excuse me. Hey, Chris Jenkins, credentialed member of the media, covering the Carolina Panthers for Charlotte Vibe, a.k.a. Man of the People, here to keep you up to date with the latest going on with these Carolina Panthers as we're now just under a month away from the draft, an exciting time coming up. But we've had some exciting times with free agency, and today we had a chance to talk with one Dan Morgan and Brandt Tilis. And so we're going to go over those conversations, kind of sum those up for you, as well as give you some of my insight in those regarding those things, as well as talk a little bit about other news around the NFL. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, and as you guys know, let me see here. Give me a second. I'm trying to get all my windows right. Okay. Oh, here we go. As you guys know, I'm going to keep you up to date with not only the Carolina Panthers, but things that are just general news I'd like to keep you guys up to date with as well. So let's me first go ahead and give a big shout out to Nate Walker. What's going on, Nate Walker? You are our first comment for the evening. I'm sure you will not be our last. But thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you watching. Make sure you tell a friend, hey, we're independent media, so you guys know the blurb, right? Like, subscribe, and leave a comment, okay? Just say, what's up, Chris? That's all you got to do. That helps the video be shown to other Carolina Panther fans, which will hopefully help us to get to 20,000 subscribers. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some news. Carolina Panthers, as you know, have not made the playoffs in a while. But, as you know, the price of business continues to go up. And so Mr. David Tepper has raised prices 6% for tickets. And so that's mostly the lower bowl that will be affected by this 6% price increase. The upper bowl will not be affected. And your premium seats, such as your suites, those things will not be affected as well. And so for me, this isn't a huge news story because of the fact that what has not gone up dramatically, right? Like cost of living, gas, eggs, even though there's a little bit of a reason behind that, tariffs, all kinds of stuff. Prices of everything is going up. So to me, not too surprising. I think actually 80% of the teams in the league is doing that this year. So no big surprises, but I just wanted to pass that information along to you guys. And then also want to talk about some possible continued rule changes. So last week we went over some. Next week there's an owners meeting that's going to take place in Florida. I don't think I'm going to go to that one, but nevertheless, that is also where some things are voted on. And one of the things that they may be, that will be pitched is moving the touchback from the 30 to the 35-yard line. And so if that's done, what the NFL is thinking is now we're going to see even more kickoff returns. So that's why they continue to tinker with this thing. It's like trying to make dead plays more interesting. Just like the field goal got pushed back, so now it's not get up and go, refill your drink. It's, hey, he may or may not make this. Kickoffs have become pretty normal where you get these big kickers and they kick the ball sometimes through the uprights, basically saying automatic touchback. But anyway, they're talking about moving the touchback from the 30, I should say up, I guess, right, to the 35. And so what that will do is if the ball is kicked and it's not, and it bounces and it's short, well, you'll be more inclined to say, well, let me go ahead and try to run this ball out instead of just letting it be a touchback. Let me phrase that a little bit better. If you kick the ball short where it has to be returned, not through the end zone, well, now you're making it where the guy has to run it out. And what you're betting on is, well, most likely this guy won't run it to the 35. Why give him the ball at the 35 when I can just kick it to the 5-yard line and maybe get him at the 25 or maybe at the 30? Sorry, that is probably a better way to explain the reasoning behind this rule change of moving a touchback to the 35 could lead to more kickoff returns. They're again thinking and hoping for like somewhere in the 60 to 70% range, which I do agree. Anytime that you can get more action from a play, keeping players safe, let's do it. Let's get rid of the boring type stuff. So wanted to share that with you guys as well. And now we're going to go ahead and get into some things. I'm going to get you first caught up with some of the free agent moves. What's going on, Knucklehead K? Gotta give her some applause. Gotta give her applause. Anytime you're a member, you always get a special love when you come on the show, all right? So make sure that you keep that in mind and you consider becoming a member. By the way, if you want to become a member, it's only like $3 a month. It's as low as it gets. So I'm just hoping that I get a lot of people to do it. Therefore, it ends up being something that really helps us continue to grow. There's always a link in the description, and that will allow you to become a member. And if you can't find it, I'm easy to reach. Leave a comment, shoot me an email, whatever, and I'll make sure that you get that link so you can become a member and get a special treatment like my girl, Knucklehead K. All right, so let's go through some free agent moves. I was a little slow in getting this to you guys, so I want to make sure I do this. This gentleman right here, safety Nick Scott. This happened about 4 days ago. Safety Nick Scott was signed to a 1-year deal, and now this helps us have some more safeties. This guy now takes our safety count to 3. I said 3 and put up 2 fingers. To 3. Damani Richardson, what's his name? Trevon. I don't know if I can say his last name properly. And now Nick Scott. So we have another safety on the team. It's a 1-year deal for Nick. He played in 10 games last year, started in 4. So now we have some reinforcement and some depth. And I'm quite sure that we are not done at that safety position. We also had another signing. This guy right here, he's happy in this picture right here. Shout out to the Carolina Panthers, as they are the originators of this photograph. But wide receiver David Moore, he signed a 1-year deal as well with the Carolina Panthers, allowing him to return for another season. A 1-year deal. Last year he had 32 receptions, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he's not like a big impact. Okay, he's a role player. He has a specific role that he's going to be fulfilling. But one thing is for sure, Dave Canales likes this guy a lot. He knows the scheme. He knows what Dave's looking for. He's a big help in the locker room. We have a lot of young guys. Of course, Adam Thielen can also mentor to these guys. But David Moore, Coach called him up. Coach Canales called him up when he was in Tampa. Hey, come play. We play? Yeah. Coach Canales then came to Carolina. Hey, come to Carolina. We come? Yeah, he'll come. So certainly a guy that is well liked by Coach Canales and will be, have his specific role in the locker room. And now let me not forget Moreg. I'm saying his name incorrectly. Thank you for the reminder, because I'm still getting new to some of these people's names. We gotta sound the music. And one more time for Knucklehead K. I'm gonna give her some claps as well. Super chats. They're always welcomed, always needed to help support us to do what we do. 100% supported by you all. So no Morris Jenkins or any big companies writing us checks to be sponsors, no commercials that you're full of. So if you guys like that, enjoy the flexibility that we have. And when you're able to, super chat. So Knucklehead cases, guys, remember to like, subscribe, become members, support Man of the People. By the way, I'm good. My seats are in the upper bowl. Yes, you are good. Your seats are in the upper bowl. There will be no price changes. But again, Knucklehead K, as a season ticket holder, I mean, don't you expect the price to go up? What price of anything doesn't go up every year, even when you do have a contract? Anyway, we won't get into that, but just want to make sure I reported that information to you guys. So I got you up to date with safety Nick Scott, David Moore, ticket prices going up, and also next week at the owners meeting, they will be talking about moving the kickoff from the 30 to the 35 in the event of a touchback, hoping that there's more there. So let's go ahead and get into, one other thing. My man, Ian Thomas. And yes, I said my man, because some of these guys, I know you all only see them on the field, right? But I am lucky enough, blessed enough to have this job where I get to go into the locker room and get to have a professional, personal relationship with these guys. And nothing at all. We're hanging out, texting, how you doing kind of deal. Ian Thomas was a really good guy to me in the locker room. He has now joined the Las Vegas Raiders. Ian Thomas is now officially a member of the Las Vegas Raiders. So I want to make sure that you all got that information and was aware of that as well. All right, so today there was an opportunity to talk with Brandt Tilis as well as Dan Morgan. And we're going to touch on both of those pressers for you starting right now. Let's see. I did a bad job of ordering my notes. But we're gonna get it together here. Let's go ahead. So Brandt was up first talking with the media today, and he started off his time with the media and talking about the team, thanking everybody for their roles and helping him to be able to know how to price his contracts and things of that nature. And they've been making a lot of decisions over there, and I'm going to share with you guys some of the information today on just how they work. And for me, I'm going to share these with you all. But one thing that I've heard from Dave Canales, things that I've heard from players when I asked them about Dave Canales, is the fact that this man knows what he wants. He has a plan. And him having that plan and knowing what he wants helps players always feel like, okay, well, he knows what we're doing. It helps them believe in him because he never gets too high, never gets too low. He always has a plan. He always knows what he wants for everything, right? And so today, as Brandt Tilis talked about how they go about, and Dan Morgan as well, talked about how they deal with some of the processes of, hey, what if Dan really wants a player, but now you're starting to break the bank? Or what about the emotional part of if you don't get the player that you're thinking you're going to get, how do you react to that? It's like they always have a plan. And I guess sometimes as a fan, you might kind of forget about, like, there's a lot of people behind the head coach, behind the general manager, behind the coordinators. I mean, there's tons of people to help them work on all these little details and all these scenarios. Nevertheless, let me go ahead and start to play some clips for you guys so you can know what I'm talking about. Let's first play this clip on Brandt Tilis talking about putting out the emotions and making sure they just do the best things possible for the team.
We do take the emotion out of the free agency room when we're making the decision because we're able to have a very good collaborative and honest dialogue as an entire organization beforehand. So what you see with what we execute takes a lot of work, a lot of discussion, and by the time it comes time to make the actual decision, we can do it unemotionally. Yeah, of course. It's hard to walk away from a deal, but at the same time, when we have a clear vision of what we want, and we have standards as far as value and things like that, it's easier to walk away, and also it's easy to make those decisions when we have the support of leadership, which is what we've got here.
So there you see Brandt talking about, how it's complicated things are there, but when you have a process, which to me is like Dave Canales, and when you have plans and you have the structure, it makes it easier when you know what you have to do. So it's not always easy to walk away, but it does make it easier when you have that kind of planning going on. He also talked about the contracts that he's been dealing with. If you have noticed, a lot of his contracts have had a lot of incentives to them, performance-based incentives. And he said that's not really anything super creative that he's starting to do on his own, saying, hey, let's do this. Now, it certainly acknowledges that it does have an advantage in that, hey, if you're a player, we have, he said that we set this expectation for you. We have this bar. Chris is going to have a 500-yard season, 3 touchdowns type of season. But we respect players that will go above that bar. What if Chris ends up with 700 yards or 6 TDs? Well, you don't have to wait to negotiate and do that. We're going to give you that incentive. But now, so he likes the idea that we can reward you and acknowledge that you played be above what we had thought that you would play. But also gives them some savings too, right? Okay, yeah, you think you're going to get this, but we kind of think you're here. So let's kind of meet in the middle through these contract incentives. But he said a lot of that is what the market is doing, right? So everything, not everything, but a lot of what happens goes by the market. How much J.C. Horn is paid is based on the market for cornerbacks. How much quarterbacks are paid is based on the market. So it's the same thing, copycat league in the way that contracts are made is if the market is doing this, then you got to adjust. So he said a lot of that contract incentive stuff is based on things that are happening within the market. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about cap space.
Yeah, so right now we have a little bit of room to spend, not a lot. So, I think we're going to be very intentional with how we spend our money here going forward. Not that we weren't before, but, I don't think you'll be seeing us bringing in 5-10 guys a week. And, as far as next year and the year after goes, we have a lot of flexibility. I don't know where the numbers exactly stand, but we're pretty excited about the ability to keep our core players, to add others, and just continue to build this thing.
All right, so I was trying to look and see if I can quickly tell you where the Carolina Panthers stand in cap space. And I think this is up to date. I'm not 100% sure. But currently on over the cap, it says we have 16 million in cap space. And geez, I know a good portion of that is going to be tied into the draft and the players there. So yeah, they don't have a ton of cap space left right now. Once you get done with the draft, I forget how much you could allocate for the draft. I'm going to wild guess probably at about 8 million for the cap. So they might have 8 million left to spend. 8 million for the cap in terms of the draft. But yeah, that's his current take on the cap. And so you would have to imagine with all that has taken place so far with free agent moves, with re-signing players, that the rest of the gaps that they have to fill is now going to come to the draft, which is now less than a month away, starting with that 8th pick. And they have a lot of picks coming up in that 2025 draft. And here's a look at those picks that they have right now. 9 picks, first round, second round, third round. And we start to kind of double up in the fourth and fifth rounds, kind of like in the middle of the draft. So that's where we're currently standing with that draft. I'm going to play one more clip from good old Brandt Tilis. There was a lot of talk about Milton, who ended up with the New England Patriots. And so, when you get a chance to talk to these guys after big things like this happen, why not ask them the question, even though it's old news now. We know that Milton is now with the New England Patriots. They want to pay him a lot more than the Carolina Panthers paid them. But as we've also known, yeah, they already had a backup plan. So it wasn't like they had to go scrambling and say, let's go reinvent the wheel. But here's a little bit of information from the man himself about the Milton situation.
When the Milton thing didn't go our way, we were just following a plan. And even, during the what do you want, if you want to call it a frenzy, whatever it was, we never felt like we had an agreement with Milton. Like his agent never gave us that indication. So we were just operating our plan, and we were going through our process and talking to all the different players and just trying to take the resources that we had and put them to the most optimal use.
All right, so that'll be all that we have from one Brandt Tilis. And now we're going to talk a little bit about Dan Morgan, who is definitely the man of the hour, right? Again, the draft will be in Green Bay. just a little less than a month away. And what's the plan? Of course, we want to know the plan. Of course, Dan does not want to tell us the plan. But certainly with them being able to fill a lot, of course, not all by any means, of the holes that they have, many things have been addressed on the defense, from the line to the secondary. I'm sorry, from the line, defensive line, to the linebackers, corners, I should say, and linebackers, and the safety. Not all of them, but many have been addressed. On the offensive side, really our move was just getting Dowdle back to help with Chuba. So wide receiver, we still have a need at wide receiver. So now that we've addressed needs as we have, how will we be using the draft? Here's a clip from Dan Morgan talking about the upcoming draft.
I don't think it's affected it that much. I mean, like I said to you guys before, we're going to take the best players. So however that ends up on the board when it comes to pick 8, if pick 8's an offensive guy or a defensive guy, like, we're just going to draft the best player that we feel is going to help our team, help our organization moving forward. And, we're really not going to box ourselves in with, any position or any need. I think that's when you get yourself in trouble, is when you do those type of things.
So I'm going to play that clip actually for you one more time. I think it'll have some better context for you. So Dan here was specifically talking about, well, now that you've gone through free agency, are there some things that you really wanted to address that now is going to put an emphasis for you addressing through the draft? And so let me play this again one more time for you.
I don't think it's affected it that much. I mean, like I said to you guys before, we're going to take the best players. So however that ends up on the board when it comes to pick 8, if pick 8's an offensive guy or a defensive guy, like, we're just going to draft the best player that we feel is going to help our team, help our organization moving forward. And, we're really not going to box ourselves in with, any position or any need. I think that's when you get yourself in trouble, is when you do those type of things.
So there you go. So could it be a wide receiver? I think now that they've made the moves that they have, that you do feel like it's possible that it could be a wide receiver. I know, and I'm going to play a clip here for a second. Before all this took place, and I talked to Dan Morgan in Indianapolis at the Combine, I'm thinking, hey, I know you guys got to be heavily focused on defense, right? Like, you can't tell me that you're not going to get a guy on the defensive side. So here's this clip of me talking with Dan back in Indy about this whole best player available. And if they end up with, instead of a defensive guy, an offensive guy, well, how might that happen?
The defensive side obviously has a lot of missing parts to it. But if you could walk me through the scenario, and with the best player available, right? If the Carolina Panthers end up going on the offensive side, how might that take place internally that you come to that kind of need?
Yeah, I think obviously, like, if all things are even on the draft board, so once we set our draft board, if all things are even, we're always going to take the need. But, if a player at a position that isn't a need per se is ahead of, a need, a guy of need, then we'll take that best player. So that's kind of how we set our board and go about setting our board during the process.
So there's a little bit of.
So it's not just blindly who's the best player available, right? As they still have holes to fill on that defensive side and things that they're trying to achieve on the offensive side. It's not just bar none, flat out, oh, this player's better. It's still a need that's in there. So if they're close, then again, like he said, well, we're going to go for the need. It's not just simply who's the best athlete. And you got to remember, they base their boards based on the Carolina Panthers, their scheme, what they want, the kind of player it is. So some of these guys may not even fit that, right? And then also, let's not forget about, there's still the possibility that they could trade back, right? And get even more leverage, get even more picks on the top end than just going with that current pick that they have. And so a scenario in which that could be really, really likely for the Carolina Panthers is, let's say that there starts to be a run on quarterbacks. And there's some team behind them that, again, their need is big on quarterback, and they feel like, well, I don't know if this guy's going to be there when we get there. So we'll let the Carolina Panthers trade back. We'll trade up. We'll give them some extra picks. And, hey, we might be able to get a very good offensive guy and a very good defensive guy pretty early on if something like that happens. So he's open to it. Dan Morgan's open to it. He said that. So that's a possibility as well. As you guys know, to me, it's really hard to get into a lot of these projections when there's so many things to still fall in place. But I will continue, and you guys can count on me always telling you where my opinion stands with the information we have as is. And certainly once chips start to fall in a certain direction, we're going to get online and we're going to talk about it and go into more depth. And as always, man of the people means I'm here for you guys, answering whatever questions that you may have, whether it's hardcore football, whether it's rules related, whether it's whatever it is. I want to continue to emphasize that man of the people means I'm here to answer anything related to football that you all can ask. And if I don't know, I'll go get the answers and then I'll come back to you, okay? So that's it for today. Again, maybe some more updates, maybe not. I always encourage you to make sure that you set your bell notifications. They will have the owners meeting next week, so we'll certainly have some updates for you on like, hey, this has passed, this has not passed. Coach Dave Canales, he's likely to speak next week as well, so you can expect to hear more from me about some things that Dave may say down in Florida at that meeting. And that'll be it for now. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you all so much for your support. Hope to see you again soon. I am Chris Jenkins reporting for Charlotte Vibe.